Hi everyone, you can skip to this time if you want to see only my submission. I recently entered into the Dynamic Machines 3D contest. If you click this video, you probably already know what the Dynamic Machine contest is about, but if you don't, it's basically a 3D rendering contest. You are tasked to get a metal ball from one end of the box to the other. The trick is that it should time off perfectly so that everyone's renders would match up seamlessly. If you want to know more about what this contest is about, I'll link to Clint's video in the card above or in the link in the description. When I saw this, my first idea was to base the design from my box on the game Portal. If you haven't heard of Portal, it's arguably the best game ever made. The goal of this game is to use portals to solve puzzles in creative ways. The player and object can travel through portals and hold their momentum, meaning that they come out the same speed as they went in from the other portal. Or, as the antagonist of the game GLaDOS says,
in layman's terms, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
My idea was that the characters would shoot portals where the ball would go through. The ball would use the momentum that it had picked up as it moved through the box. So the first thing I did was draw out my idea in paint. I know, it's a masterpiece that should be in a museum. Unfortunately, we can't submit 2D images. It has to be a 3D rendering in a video. I don't know what. This meant that I had a lot of work ahead of me. The next thing I did was to block out the whole box in Blender. I used basic shapes like squares and spheres as placeholders for the final models. While using these placeholders, I started doing animations for the ball. Now that I had my basic scene ready, it was time to start adding the final models and textures. Valve, the company that made Portal, also have their own animation program called the Source Filmmaker. Almost all of the models, textures and sounds from the games that Valve had made can be used in players' own animations through the Source Filmmaker. I then went and searched for a way to import Source Filmmaker models into Blender. This is probably what took me the longest. First, I had to extract all of the files from the game using a program called GFCscape. Then I had to use another program called Crowbar to decompile the models. Even though I thought I was close to done, I still had a lot to do before I could use these models. Now I needed to install an add-on in Blender called Blender Source Tools. This add-on basically allows you to import Source Filmmaker models into Blender. This unfortunately only imports a model and animations, but not the textures or materials. I needed yet another program for that. I used VTF Edit, another program, to extract the textures from these models. I could now use these textures to create my own materials for these models in Blender. I saved each model in its own blend file so that I could use these models in future projects. From here, all I had to do was to import all of the models into my scene. After importing the character models, I created a bunch of animations for them as well as using some of the imported animations as well. All I had to do was render the animation and then I would be done, right? Turns out I was a long way from done. In terms of effort, I was about halfway. The problem was that even though everything was Portal themed, the portals themselves were not see-through. If we look at the actual game, you can clearly see through all of the portals to the other side. After searching the internet, I realized that there is no simple way to do this in Blender or any other 3D program. After a lot of struggling, I figured out a solution that I would be able to accomplish before the deadline. It's not perfect, but it works very well. First, I needed to make sure that the portals had holes in them. I could have manually rotoscoped the holes for the portals in a program like After Effects, but I had a simpler, more effective solution. I duplicated the scene and made all the objects either black or white. I added an object in the middle of the portals where the hole would be and colored it white. Everything else was colored black. This basically gave me an alpha mask that I could use in After Effects to tell the program where the holes of the portals are. To get the perspective of the portal, I had an even simpler solution. Since the cameras were moving top to bottom through the animations, we have perspective of the box from all angles top to bottom. I then played the same video inside of the hole of the portal. With the video just moved a bit forwards or backwards in time so that it looks like we can see through the portal. This worked very well except for the last portal, where you can clearly see the character not moving correctly. Luckily, this is a small problem that I doubt anyone would notice. So, without further ado, here is my final render. Although the video loops very well, the sound does not, so I will only be playing it twice.
Acquired. Target acquired. Target acquired. Target acquired.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I would appreciate that very much. You'll find other similar videos on my channel where I also create things in Blender if you are interested. Thanks again. Have a good day.